So the Spurs have had a schedule.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Happy Monday. Welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. Hope y'all had a great, restful weekend and back at work and ready to get through this week. We'll help you get through it right here on Locked On Spurs. As always, subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast. Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app, YouTube, you know where to go. Also, in the description below, in the YouTube side of things, there's a link to the Locked On Spurs newsletter. Sign up for that today. It's completely free. It's a nice little counterpiece, a little companion piece, I should say, to Locked On Spurs. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhoodgold.com/gold. So again, that's robinhood.com/gold. So what are we talking about today? We're going to be looking at the Spurs as a whole. We all know they're in a rebuild, right? As a matter of fact, we discussed this last week on Locked On Spurs about the rebuild, like where they're at right now. But taking that information, are they now ahead of schedule? Could we be looking at possibly playoff, like 1 through 6 slot, not getting in through the play-in closer, sooner than later? What do any indications show that maybe they are? Or maybe our guest is probably going to shoot it down and say, nah, they're not even close. They're not even ahead of schedule. We're going to be discussing that as well as some Locked On Spurs fan comments. Yeah, you guys are been lighting it up on the YouTube page. Y'all been lighting up the guests too. Yeah. Why you have to go after Casey Vieira like that for, guys? Seriously. Well, we're gonna look at some Locked On Spurs fan comments again right here on Locked On Spurs. So yeah. Well, first of all, we're recording this show ahead of the Spurs Wolves game, so keep that in mind. But nevertheless, you know, they're as of this recording, they're above 500 by a game. You know, they had a great game, in my opinion. I think it was probably one of their better games in their come from behind win versus the Blazers. They're playing pretty well. Victor even said something interesting after the win versus Portland, saying last year's team probably wouldn't be able to survive what happened during the Blazers game. More on that later. So is that a sign that this team is ahead of schedule? And if they are, is there a percentage? Is there some sort of indicator to show like, yeah, they're at least a year ahead or maybe a half a season? Well, let's discuss that with our guest. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Make sure to follow him on X at Sweep the League and do that right now. And okay, you definitely repping his show. Look at his t-shirt, Sweep the League, repping MCS. You're just repping everybody today.
Well, I got to rep him on the biggest podcast in San Antonio. So
I like to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely number one.
Yeah, well, appreciate it. So yeah, Rudy's back with us, kicking things off for the week right here on Locked On Spurs. I was a guest of Rudy's show last week. Mm-hmm. It was a pretty cool experience. You say my thought, like I just didn't conceptualize it at first. I thought I was joining with you guys, like you and Eric and Gio. That's what I took it as, but you introduced a new feature now. It's kind of like a pre-show, kind of like a warm-up act.
Yeah, so months ago, we launched what's called Sweep Unplugged. And Sweep Unplugged is where we kind of unplug, from Derek, myself, and Gio. We talked to, guys like you, Chuck Mans recently from San Antonio. We've talked to people all around the world, and it's kind of introducing everybody to different parts of podcasting. So it goes anywhere from you and I talking nerd stuff to just a little bit of Spurs, because you know what? You unplugged from, Spurs talk because you do it all day, every day. Yeah. So
refreshing.
That's why we say it's Sweep Unplugged. We talk different things with everybody else, kind of expand the horizon a little bit. But in some instances, it's a pregame as well for Sweep the League TV.
Into some silver and black talk. And as of this recording, Rudy, the Spurs are ahead of their 500. They're above 500 by 1. Sure, okay, fine. They've been showing a lot of grit, a lot of toughness, and they've been showing that they're not going to lay down and die. Perfect example is the Blazers game. That game, I thought they were done for. Blazers went up in double figures, a lot of momentum the Portland's way. Sure, the Spurs are going to make their run, but I think there's going to be a big enough run to get to the W. And they did, but it wasn't just simply the run. It was how they did the run. It was not folding under pressure. It was hitting clutch shots. Portland was one of the have some of the best clutch players on the roster, even despite their record. This is a deadly team, and sure, they well below 500, but you still got Grant, you still got Simons, you still got Klingon. They got some power. Denny Advia. They got a bunch of guys on there. How they won was so refreshing. They did not give up. They got a lot of contributions from everybody, from Champagne, obviously Wemby. Devin was just great. Sohan, Mitch Johnson said it was Sohan that flipped the game to the Spurs' favor. My point is this. That game encapsulated an idea that I had, and that's why you're here, is, are they ahead of schedule? People maybe say, no, the Spurs are 3-4 years away from making the playoffs. But can we say we can shrink that now? How far ahead do you think they are if they're rebuilt or schedule, if at all? Or maybe you might take off my Spurs colored glasses right now and say, Jeff, relax. Relax here. There's still a ways away to go. Well, what do you think?
Well, I mean, considering they're, a game and a half, 2 games out of the sixth seed basically right now, which is a playoff team, I would say they are ahead of schedule right now, but that's in terms of this season only. Because if you're talking ahead of schedule as far as playoff, consistent playoff appearances or play-in appearances, if they had signed Chris Paul to 3-year deal, I would say, it would be a lot more better and a lot more easier to understand than being ahead of schedule. But for this season, they are ahead of schedule. After the 20-game mark, I literally had them probably around 8-12 after 20 games. I mean, I think at worst it would have been 5-15. They pretty much have demolished that record that I was giving them ahead of time. But at this point right now, they are ahead of schedule just for this season. I mean, you like what you see out of Champagne. You're liking what you're seeing out of Chris Paul. He's a great leader that they desperately needed. You're liking what you're seeing out of Harrison Barnes as well. The emergence of Champagne helps a lot, but I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on this sense right here, but I do ask a question, and it's a legit question. We've seen guys like Jonathan Simmons, Gary Neal, Jaren Jackson, Roger Mason. I'm throwing names out there, and the reason why I'm throwing them out there is because we've seen them have great seasons and breakout seasons for the San Antonio Spurs, and then they tend to struggle after that or go somewhere else and struggle. So you kind of take what you're getting right now from Champagne. You hope it continues. If it continues all the way to the season in the next season, then I would say they are ahead of schedule.
Yeah, I think for me, Victor, when he said post game about the win, saying, in a nutshell, it's pretty much last year's team wouldn't be able to do what they did versus Portland. And that's true. They wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
But what made it more impressive for me to think like collectively they're ahead of schedule is that they did it without Chris Paul, who got thrown out of that game. They did it with a hobbled Castle who didn't play at all.
Yeah.
And you had Sohan, that point guard experiment kind of paid dividends a bit for the team, at least in one game. Blake Wesley had the highest plus and minus of the roster. He had a plus 15. That's even over Wemby, who had a plus 9.
Yeah.
So guys stepped up. This just shows me that their maturity level might be ahead of schedule. Thus, the team collectively, the rebuild pieces, like Barnes and Paul, they're not going to be here for the full rebuild until they actually break through and are a perennial playoff team. But that showed me a lot that, I think their maturity level is ahead of schedule. Thus, why they're winning, or at least how they won versus Portland, makes me believe that they are ahead of schedule. You know what? Let's hold that thought. When we get back, we're gonna revisit the win total projection for the Spurs. Has it changed? Has it moved up? Do we think they're gonna bust through that? And if they do break through that win total projection, is that even a bigger sign that they're ahead of schedule? We're gonna be discussing that with Rudy Campos of Sweep to Lead. Make sure to follow my X at Sweep to Lead and do that right now. But first, let's talk about Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up today at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Look, Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us, but what about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them. Because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. Therapy is very helpful. Learning coping skills, positive coping skills, setting boundaries, what empowers you to be the best version of yourself if it isn't just those for those experienced major traumas, those for also experience good things, just want to keep those good things going. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Go to BetterHelp right now. It'll help you become your better version of yourself. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him right now on X at Sweep the League. Check out his show on YouTube, Sweep the League. He'll get a chance to brag about that in just a few minutes. So, Rudy, before the break, we were talking about, are they ahead of schedule? You're seeing some signs that, yeah, they are. I think the maturity level definitely is taking leaps and bounds ahead of schedule. But interesting enough, though, I went back during the break and checked out the latest win total projection. If there are any updates for the Spurs, there's not really. It's still holding steady at 36.5. If they bust through that, let's just say they get to 38, 40, is that another sign that they're ahead of schedule?
Oh God. Again, it's probably the Chris Paul factor. I mean, they are ahead of schedule for the season if they get to 38 wins, 40 wins. I mean, even up to 45, 46 wins. I want to say, yeah, they're ahead of schedule for this season, because if you go into next season without a veteran leader in Chris Paul, you have Stephon Castle, who, shows that he can run the point guard, but he's not Chris Paul. So then you go into next season thinking, well, okay, well, this team's coming in at 42 wins previously, just throwing it out there. We're expecting them to be at 42, 45, 46. If we don't get the same outcome, then you're thinking, okay, well, they took a step back. I mean, that's the tough part to come across this when it comes to, are they ahead of schedule? I think they're on the right path. They are definitely, I think I had them at 30 wins total for the year. So I had them finishing 30 and 52 for the year. 17 wins away from getting to that 30. I'm pretty confident they can get there. Yeah, I think 36 right now, that's probably a good take, which doesn't put them in the play-in spot, even at 36 wins right now. But I think if they get to 36 wins, that's a 14-game turnaround. That's a massive turnaround for a young group of guys that were coming off 22 wins the previous year. So ahead of schedule this season, yes, Jeff, 100% ahead of schedule. Ahead of schedule on the rebuild, you still got to take another year to see what happens.
But doesn't that impact the rebuild? If they're ahead of schedule already, doesn't that mean the rebuild gets shortened? I mean, to me, it goes hand in hand. And I already said it. The maturity level, you can see it. Yeah. The players talk about it. Wemby talks about it. Champagne talks about it. Chris Paul recently said that he started to notice that they don't really need him out there anymore in pressure situations. So to me, because yes, I am looking at Chris Paul this season, and maybe they're ahead of schedule as far as maybe the win projection, but I look at the head of schedule of saying, like, let's just say Paul's not here next season. I think what he's doing this year is just going to push this team ahead of schedule, and also Barnes too. I'm not trying to forget his contributions as a veteran presence, but I think that when I look at that win total projection, 36.5, at least as of right now, I think the Spurs get 40. Would you be surprised if they get 40?
This season,
Yeah.
probably not.
No.
I mean,
wouldn't either.
I think right now, looking at it, I would probably put 40 on the high, 40, 41 on the high end now, to where I think I had them at 35 on the high end for the end of the season. But I think 40, 41 is probably reachable. Again, you know, they're still pretty early in the season, and I'm not downgrading what they've accomplished so far. So they've accomplished a whole lot this season. And you're right. I mean, there's instances where Chris Paul's not needed. They're playing well without Chris Paul. You saw them come back in Portland.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to downgrade the Portland win because you never apologize for winning.
Yeah.
But I mean, Portland isn't exactly one of the greatest teams in the NBA right now. Yeah. They're in a major rebuild.
ISO guys, that's all.
Yeah, it's ISO basketball. You know, Derek talks about that, and it's not a good thing for the game. But I'll say this: the rebuild, like you were talking about, does it shorten the rebuild? I think it has shortened the rebuild, where I was thinking the rebuild would be 26, 27. You've got, you know, and everybody hates, why do everybody hate the word draft picks? We got a buddy of ours that hates draft picks, but draft picks are gold, man. And, you know, you want to trade them for a lot of veterans, which in the offseason in 2025, you're going to have a lot of guys that are going to be on the move. So those draft picks are going to be gold because those teams are going to want those first rounders. So I think now you can possibly say 25, 26 with the right moves. I think the rebuild is probably more in sight than it was at the beginning of the season, even with the addition of Chris Paul.
I agree. I think they're out of the rebuild sooner than later. I say on the pie in the sky take here by next season, if they do it right at the draft and draft right and trade right.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they make us, as they swing for the fences, they make a deal, bring in another power player, I think they can get out of the rebuild as soon as next season because of their draft capital, because of their financial situation, and because they got players that can flip right now. They really can. You got some players that are going to have expiring contracts that's going to free up some more money. Trey Jones has an expiring contract, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do they bring him back? Not. You know, do they, you know, you don't know. But if they decide not to or they flip him, they can do that. And they can move up the draft. Let's say those Hawk picks don't work out. Mm-hmm. Well, you're still going to get some pretty good high picks, maybe in the teens. You can still package those and flip those. And they can't use them all. They can't draft all their picks. They're gonna have to burn them, trade them away, something. So I think they can push, if they put the pedal to the metal, they can get out of the rebuild as soon as next season because of the assets they currently have. Now, realistically, I say maybe 2 more years. 2 more years are out of it.
Yeah, I mean, like I think when you and I have talked before, I think we pointed at 26, 27, you know, 25, the summer of 25 was the main summer. That was the summer that we had circled. And we've all said, you want to circle that summer. Not only do you have a loaded draft from picks 1 through 30 in the first round where you can get an impact player right away, you also have a great free agent class coming up in 2025. And you also have guys that are not wanting to be where they are. So, I mean, you have some disgruntled superstars that want to be moved. So summer of 2025 is going to be huge. So the Spurs are primed for that. But if they don't make big splashes, you got to keep a guy in mind here. I mean, Zach Collins is probably on his last leg with the San Antonio Spurs, which everybody's in love with Charles Bassey.
Yeah,
he's not signed beyond this season. So if he plays as well as he is, he's going to command a pretty good salary, and chances are pretty good that there's going to be a team out there that could use his services that may overpay for Charles Bassey. And the same thing goes for Mamu. I mean, he's not signed beyond this season. So there's going to be a lot of challenges for the Spurs. You're going to have majority of the guys coming back next year. So if you've got a 42-win team this year, 40-win team this year, majority of the guys are signed up until next season already, with the exception of Chris Paul being the main guy. Right. You mentioned Trey Jones. So there you go with the point guard situation again. You only have Steph Castle at point. Blake Wesley's another one that has a point, but is he at the point where you can trust him, I don't know. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But for this season, the rebuild, it's already stopped. They're ahead of schedule for this season. But I would say this, on one note, from now on, until you get consistency, until you get players under longer term deals, I think the ahead of schedule talk needs to go season by season. If that makes sense right there.
Hey, we're not done talking about this topic. When we get back, we're going to wrap it up. Your final thoughts, if the Spurs are ahead of schedule or not, and then dive into you guys. Locked On Spurs fan comments. You guys are leaving a bunch of them. We're going to pick two and discuss them coming up next right here on Locked On Spurs. But first, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Hey, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need and the place where to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com right now to join today. By the way, the app is very easy to use, user-friendly. It's very intuitive and not hard to navigate whatsoever. Sign up is easy. Hey, look, NFL action, as mentioned, is underway. NBA action is underway. Your Spurs are underway right now. What more do you need? Go to FanDuel.com right now to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All that takes is just for you to go and sign up right now. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All systems have been alerted to your presence. You must subscribe to Locked On Spurs immediately.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. He is on X at Sweep the League, and his show is on YouTube at Sweep the League. And I'm pretty sure, Rudy, that MCS's very own Chris Leha paid you a hefty sum to wear that cap on Locked On Spurs.
Yeah, we go to lunch. We go to lunch. We take catering, so that's why.
Buy you like 3 lunches in a row.
No, man, no. With Leha, I love Leha to death. He does a lot for the community. No, he does a lot for the community, man. Not just for everybody around here. He does a lot for the community in general. They just recently were part of a toy drive as well. So,
yeah.
I mean, that MCS does a lot for the community. Yeah. Shout out to them.
Yeah, I don't mind the MCS coming on here. I mean, like, a few times. I'm just messing with you, Chris, because you're Rudy here, man. He's getting it on Ken's 5 right now on all their platforms.
Oh, yeah.
TV right now.
Don't blur it out, please.
Yeah, exactly. Leha, I know you're probably watching this segment. So, Rudy, he likes Phil Miller's on Mondays. He likes Padre on Wednesday. So, just a little heads up there. But anyway, we're talking about the silver and black, and are the Spurs franchise as a whole, are they ahead of schedule? So one final thought I have on this before we get into some comments here from the YouTube page.
Yeah.
How much of impact does Mitch Johnson, the whole Popovich situation, factor in this? I think it helps. Helps because you're kind of getting over that major hurdle on the fly right now. Like nobody expected the Popovich thing to happen. Hopefully he's getting better. But they were kind of forced into having that regime change, on the fly. And so far it's working out. I think this factors in helping this team be ahead of schedule, because whether it was going to happen this year or not, or next couple seasons, they're going to have to start their coaching search. It was going to start to happen, but they were forced to do it because of the Popovich stroke and, being aside for a while.
Yeah.
And Mitch Johnson has been stepping in admirably. I think that factor, unfortunate it is, but I think that coaching change, it's technically a coaching change right now, is helping this team push along further the rebuild. Your thoughts?
The Mitch Johnson thing definitely makes a huge difference for the rebuild. It's a younger coach, a coach that, again, we're not taking shots at Pop at all, but it's a coach that is more adaptable to today's player. Coaches like Greg Popovich, Jerry Slow, and a lot of these guys, I mean, they were back in the heyday of the NBA. Players coming in now, it's different. It's it's branding of themselves. It's how many likes and views can I get on TikTok? It's all this other stuff. So you need kind of a younger mind to coach a lot of these guys. What's great about Mitch is he basically presents and he coaches similar to Pop and presents everything that Pop does, but in his own way. So you're seeing the Pop way on the court.
Yeah.
It's just Mitch Johnson, presenting it to the players and coaching them his way. I mean, that's basically what it is. And it's a younger coach. So I like what it is. Now, the question I've got for you and something to think about, because this goes on the rebuild side. Say Pop doesn't come back, Pop coach, and, he's going to, you know what, guys, I'm not going to come back.
Yeah.
Well, do the Spurs run with Mitch Johnson, or do they get a veteran coach there are veteran coaches out there, and there are very successful veteran coaches out there to come in and coach? That is the biggest question. And that's part of the rebuild, because you don't know. He's an interim. He doesn't have he's not the final head coach. Like, he doesn't have the head coach title. So to me, that's kind of scary when I cover the Spurs, because I'm assuming he's going to take the head coaching spot. He's going to be offered it.
Yeah. Well, I think if they wanted to go that route for bringing in a winning veteran NBA head coach, they would have done it with Brett Brown. They would have done it already. They would have hired somebody right now. But I think the fact that they're looking at Mitch right now, they wanted to keep it internal, and they did that because look at all the coaching brain power that's gone from Becky to Ime to Will Hardy to Tori Messina, Budenholzer, the list goes on and on. So I think they would have done it by now, but I think they have a lot of faith in Mitch. And I think, look, if Pop doesn't come back, you're seeing the changing of the guard right now. We're witnessing it on the fly. And so far, so good.
Keep your eye on Mike Brown. I'll say keep your eye on Mike Brown. Kings are struggling, and if De'Aaron Fox requests a trade or leaves in the free agency, there might be Mike Brown might be getting a little bit of rumbles. And Mike Brown, we'll put it this way: look how deep it goes for Mike Brown. Ever since he left Golden State, Steve Kerr's been terrible as a coach.
Yeah. So
keep that in mind. They haven't been the same team since Mike Brown left, and I think if Mike Brown became available, then you're looking at, okay, again, it's a rebuild. Mitch does a great job taking them to the play-in, but if they have a chance to get a coach that knows the system, a coach that has been successful in other places, yada, yada, yada. Personally, I think you run with Mitch. I think he's earned his stripes, and he definitely deserves to be a head coach. But it's that feeling that says, man, do they have, if they have an opportunity to get a veteran coach that has had success, do they dare do it? I don't know. It's a question.
See. It's a good question. Yeah. I personally think they'll stick with Mitch if Pop doesn't come back. I think that's the route they're going to go. And I think the proof is there already. They had one already with Brett Brown. He's on that roster. They said nope. I mean, he's coached a generational big already in Philadelphia, Joel Embiid. He's coached the Philadelphia to the playoffs, so he knows winning basketball. They could have done it already, but they stuck with Mitch, so we'll see. Hey, do you think that the Spurs are ahead of schedule, looking at from the coaching situation to the players to how they're winning, the Chris Paul effect? Let us know. Let Rudy know on XS Food to League. Let me know by simply following the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. Go on YouTube and check out Locked On Spurs. Just search for it, easy to find and schedule. All right, speaking of the Locked On Spurs YouTube, let's go look at some of the comments you fans are leaving here on Locked On Spurs YouTube side of things. So let's go. And the first one is from Robert Robinson, 1137. Rudy, he says here, Devin should start. Works well with Wemby from last year. Now, that's been kind of a hot topic among Spurs fans, with everybody pretty much back healthy except for Trey Jones. What do you do with arguably your second best player, Devin Vassell? As of this recording, he is still coming off the bench. I know he started the last game, but they had some injury situations. But when it's healthy, it seems like Devin is going to be a bench player. Now, he's talked about it, and he's fine with it. It's no big deal. We looked at some of the numbers last week, Rudy. He's averaging the exact same stats as a starter and as a bench player. So it is what it is. But should the Spurs mix up that starting unit, even though that starting unit is one of the best in the league?
Man, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And that's a great comment, because I always think if it's not broken, don't fix it. And it seems to be one of the better starting lineups. But, the other part too as well, in today's NBA, in today's basketball world, this being a starter mean anything anymore? I mean, it's kind of positionless basketball. It's a new era. If Devin's getting 33 minutes a night, whether he starts or he comes off the bench after, 5 minutes in the first quarter, I don't think players care anymore. I think it's just more about shot attempts. It's more about how many minutes they get. And he's going to be there in crunch time. So I'm okay. If he's fine with coming off the bench, I'm fine with leaving the starting five the way it is. They've been getting sometimes they get off to rocky starts, but a lot of times they get off to a good start. But the good thing is, if you have Devin coming off the bench with Keldon, that's a really good 1-2 punch right there, coming off the bench as your 6th and 7th man. So
for sure,
I got no issues with it. I know people want Devin to start, but at this point, just, let them figure it out. They're going to have to figure it out sometime, because the biggest person and the biggest question mark is Champagne. You don't want to ruin his confidence right now.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, just it's not one of the comments we're going to go dive into, but this kind of backs up the comment we just read right now from Shark number 4. He goes, I'm going to have to disagree with y'all on this one. Unless we're talking injury management, Devin needs to get back to starting lineup ASAP.
Yeah.
So it was like Spurs fans would like to see Devin back in that starting five. I'm with the old expression, don't fix what's not broken. That starting unit is playing well. The numbers show it. Chemistry's there. Don't mess it up. And not to say that Devin would mess it up. I just think it'll, like you mentioned, it'll throw off Julian's rhythm.
Yeah.
It's another mouth to feed aside from Wemby, which is great. But, again, Wemby seems to thrive with basically role players around him. Mm-hmm. So we'll see with that. So thanks for that comment there. Robert Robinson, we appreciate it. All right, the next one comes from, let's see, drum roll, please. I got it right here. Ooh, this is a good one. This is from Ramon Punseling, 3397. Get ready. Wemby is being foolish and hurting the team with his insistence on taking an excessive number of shots beyond the arc. What do you think about that? And that's been kind of another topic this start of the season. Wemby's taking too many perimeter shots. He should be camping near the rim, near the paint. But I'm at the point already in just his sophomore season that's just who Wemby's going to be. I think from this point till he's 10, 11th year veteran, he's still going to be taking perimeter shots. I think that's just the way he is. You look at some of the comments he made after the Portland game. He was asked about battling big man Klingon. And one of the interesting comments he said, he goes, I should have taken some more outside shots because he has the ability to take them.
Yeah.
So, Ramon, I understand, but I think Wemby's just going to be that kind of big.
Yeah.
This modern day big, and he's going to take perimeter shots, whether inside the 3, outside the 3. I think he's just going to do it.
Yeah, I feel for Ramon, because I don't like him taking a 3-point shot. I've never liked it. I don't mind a couple occasional shots here and there. I mean, again, it's today's basketball. These 7-footers are wanting to jack up threes left and right, and everybody wants to shoot. It's why basketball is boring now, because it's 75, 83-point attempts in one game, and it's just bad basketball. But nonetheless, you're going to have to live with it. I mean, he's shooting, I guess he can call it a respectable 34% from beyond the arc. Yeah. So, I mean, we just got to live with it. He's more dominant in the paint, and it shows every time he's in the paint, but he's a young kid. You're not going to get him to change his ways. There's no way.
Yeah. And remember, he's been adamant since day one. Oh, I'm not a traditional big. Don't put me in a pigeonhole here. I am this. I'm not like these big guys. I don't want to be a big guy. So I understand. I understand everybody's angst. You know, you're 7'5" with a wingspan size of a 747. You know, take advantage of it. But yeah, I just think Wemby's going to be Wemby, and that's just who Wemby is going to be. Perimeter 3-shot making Wemby. All right, thanks for those comments, everybody. We appreciate it. And as always, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. We're done here, but we want to hear from you. What do you think about some of the topics we talked about today, from the comments that the fans left to are the Spurs ahead of schedule? We talked about the Chris Paul effect. We talked about the coaching change. Technically, it's a coaching change right now, and a lot of maturity. We need to know. What do y'all think? You can let Rudy know on X at Sweep the League. You can let me know on X as well at Jeff G Spurs Zone, and subscribe to Locked On Spurs on the YouTube page, iTunes, Ken's 5 Plus app, and a lot more other places. So basically, where you find us, you find your best podcast, that's where you're going to find us as well. But before we go, we got to let Rudy have his moment to shine and talk about Sweep the League. Tell us what's going on there with Sweep. Big week ahead?
Yeah, so we're taking off Mondays. I got busy on Monday night, so we're coming Tuesday through Friday. Christmas coming up, our schedule's going to change a little bit, but all you got to do is go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, hit that subscribe button. It's myself, Derek Gervin. Coach Gio's coming back from the he wasn't in the transfer portal, FYI. People were asking if he was. He was in the transfer portal. He's coming back right now, so he had a lot of work to do. But yeah, Tuesday through Friday right now, 9 p.m. Also, we'll be dropping a lot more Sweep Unplug and Sweep Unplug Live, so just stay tuned. A whole lot out there. And before we go, man, I give me a second. I want to give a shout out to a friend of yours and a friend of mine.
Oh, really?
Congratulations to Brandon Medina, man.
Yes.
Graduated Masters, University of Alabama, Roll Tide. Hey, man, that's an accomplishment in itself. So shout out to Brandon Medina for that one.
Man, he's educated.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very educated. Yeah,
I bet he'll back through high school.
I don't know if I can ask him to be a Locked On Spurs anymore. I might be his intellectual level now.
I can imagine, man. I can imagine the talks you guys would have because y'all have degrees. I don't have.
No, stop. He is Rudy Campos. And by the way, Leha again. So make sure, did you take care of Rudy for your Locked On Spurs? You know you're listening. But all in all, yeah, we're just messing around with Chris Leha and MCS general contracting. But we'll be back tomorrow talking all things Spurs. Like they check out what's going on this week. You know, we'll find some stuff to talk about your favorite NBA team. Again, subscribe to Locked On Spurs, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube app, Ken's 5 Plus app. You know what to do. Locked On Spurs newsletter. If you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description below. Click on that link. It's free. Nice companion piece to Locked On Spurs. So for Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock in this episode of Locked On Spurs.